Well, it looks like we're back. Terminator Dark Fate is directed by Tim Miller and starring Linda Hamilton, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mackenzie Davis, Natalie Reyes, and Gabriel Luna. Before I go any further, I just want to say there will not be any plot spoilers in this review. This is the newest film in the Terminator franchise. This is the 6th film in the Terminator franchise, a franchise that goes back all the way to the original film in 1984 that was directed by James Cameron. This film's plot is centered around the character of Danny, who is a young Mexican girl who is somehow an important part of the fate of the human race in the future. A cybernetically enhanced human has been brought back from the future to protect her in Grace, portrayed by Mackenzie Davis, and also Sarah Connor, portrayed by the great Linda Hamilton, is also there to protect her as well. And of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger would show up at some point in this film because it's apparently not a Terminator film without him. Our new Terminator, our bad Terminator, is portrayed by Gabriel Luna, and he's a bit of a different Terminator than we have seen in the past. For those of you familiar with the name of Tim Miller, he is the director who finally brought the comic book character of Deadpool to the big screen a few years ago. It was a big hit. He did not come back for the second film, Deadpool 2, due to some creative differences and whatnot, so his next project was this film, Terminator Dark Fate. And Terminator Dark Fate basically takes all of the films that come after Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, Terminator Salvation, Terminator Genesis, even the Sarah Connor Chronicles television series, takes all of those things and just throws them out, wipes them all out, and we are going to do what some franchises have been doing for the last several years. That is pretty much go back to the point where people love the franchise and make a new film continuing from there on, and that is where we are right now. And there's going to be a lot of people who are probably not happy with what happens in this film, how it takes this franchise in a new direction, and how it's a bit of a reboot of the franchise in a new kind of ground floor setting. But I won't get into any of those details because that would be spoiling the plot. Let's just stick with Tim Miller for right now. Tim Miller, I think, is a really good action film director, and what we get in this movie, I think, is a really competently and very well made action film. The action in this film, I think, is rather entertaining, well put together. Unfortunately, it does kind of cater to being over CGI'd at time and being in overabundance when it comes to just how many action scenes there are in this film. There isn't really a good balance when it comes to the action versus the plot in this film, and the plot itself, as you heard from my description, is not exactly something we haven't seen before within this franchise. It takes some elements from the first two films and blends it with new modern type things. It has a new modern setting, a new modern character going through more modern things, and it's a Terminator film for, I think, a whole new generation, and that can be both positive and a negative depending on who you are as a viewer and what you're expecting from a Terminator film. When it comes to the overall acting in this film, I think Linda Hamilton slips right back into her role as Sarah Connor pretty seamlessly for me. It's a different kind of Sarah Connor. It's an older, more angry, more rugged Sarah Connor, but I think it's the Sarah Connor that we all know from 30 or so years ago. The star for me in this film is Mackenzie Davis as Grace. She is badass. She is fierce. She is just kicking some serious ass in this film, and she is really good, and I really liked her character's backstory. She's my favorite part of this movie. The young actress, who's a bit of an unknown, I think does an okay job with what she is given and for what her character's role is. It's a bit of a character role that we've seen before. It's a bit of a mix of John Connor and Sarah Connor in the younger forms that we saw in the first two films in the franchise. I really would have wanted to see a lot more from her and a lot more from her character and why she is so important to the overall plot of this film and to the overall kind of world that Tim Miller is setting up. Also, Arnold Schwarzenegger is back in this film, and the way in which he is brought back in this film is rather lazy to me. It's rather kind of wedged in there. It's interesting the way he's brought in, but once again, we're not given a lot of time to really kind of give us any type of build up to it or give us any type of foundation for it that I think we really need. The film is also dealing with, I think, a lot of interesting themes when it comes to just the fate of humanity. No matter what we do, humanity is always going to be rather self-destructive. And I think that's a rather interesting thing because as we see our world today, there's a lot of things that are rather self-destructive, and technology, I think, is one of them. Technology is both a positive and negative when it comes to our lives, and the film is really saying a lot when it comes to that, especially when we get to the Gabriel Luna Terminator character. He's an interesting Terminator for me because he's a bit of a mix of the old and the new. He's a bit of a mix of the old T-800 as well as the Robert Patrick one. I think his character is Rev 9, which is kind of a cool robot Terminator type name, but I really like how fierce he is and how kind of stone cold stoic that Gabriel Luna plays him, because he is, a soulless robot, if you will. Unfortunately for me, you can tell when the CGI elements are a bit too much when it comes to his character. The film itself, as you can tell just from the general synopsis of the plot, isn't exactly an original film when it comes to building off of what we already have with Terminator, building off of the way in which the world they're trying to reset back to that time. We're not really building out from it, we're kind of rebooting, we're kind of refiguring out where we're going to go from here. And unfortunately, the film holds back a lot of, I think, important details. We really need a lot more information because the film really thinks that we're going to get a sequel, and that's not really something you want to do when it comes to just a film trying to get people interested in what this world entails, and especially when it comes to a reboot and it comes to adding new things to an already established franchise. You really want to give people as much interesting information as they can to draw them in, and this film really does not do that. So with all of that being said, I'm going to give this film a 3.25 out of 5 stars. It's an entertaining, fun action film. It's probably the best Terminator film we've gotten since Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Granted, the bar really hasn't been that high for it to go over. I thought the acting was solid, but the film really has a lot of recycled plots, and it's really a film that's setting up a new franchise that may or may not happen. That has been my review of Terminator Dark Fate. If you like this video, please check out the other videos on my channel.